Hello and welcome to Boudica Flame of the Iceni episode 6. Thank you for joining us once again. We're going to do a very quick intro moving around the cast. If you can all say who you are, who you're going to be playing this evening, and then pass on to somebody else, that would be fantastic. As ever, could we please start with you, Jane? Oh, let me unmute you.
I'd like to pass to... Hi, I'm Jane, I'm playing Boudica, and I would like to pass to Curtis.
Hello, I'm Curtis, and tonight I'm going to be playing Dicarius, and I will pass you over to Becky.
Hello, I'm Becky. I am narrating tonight. I'm one of the narrators, and I will pass you over to Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm going to be playing Jodak this evening, and I'm going to pass you over to Harley.
My name is Harley. I will be part of the be playing Stepanides and Hafter, and I shall pass you over to Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm going to be playing one of the narrators this evening, as well as Sabina tonight. And I would like to pass you over to Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I will be playing Oswaldus, Terrada, and the boy tonight. And I would like to pass you over to Elric.
Hello, I'm Elric, and tonight I shall be playing Agro, Menace, Rufus, and Jacquemus. And I'd like to pass you over to Kylie.
Hi, that's handy. Hi, I'm Kylie, and I will be playing Thuz and Elder this evening, along with Young Mother and Catus Decianus. And and I'll pass over to Laura.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to be playing a Ronwin this evening. My name is Laura, and I'll pass you over to Alice.
Hi, I'm Alice. I'm going to be narrating this evening and playing Merla and Epolina. And I'll hand you back to Laura.
Who has everybody introduced? Yeah, awesome. I think it's just because everybody's quite a few people are playing multiple characters. I was like, okay, is that everybody? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, with that in mind, then, if everybody's happy to, we'll begin. I'll hand you over to Harley to begin. Yeah. Thank you.
Boudica, the Iceni, episode 6. Choices, part 1, by Laura J. Harris.
Previously.
Recap of the action during previous episodes, including Dicarius approaches the wrapped body of his father, but is stopped by Boudica.
There is blood on you, on your Roman clothes.
Boudica moves out of frame.
I just want to say goodbye.
Jodak approaches Dicarius, who is feeling angry and hopeless.
I saw his death in flames.
You could have stopped it. All of it.
No!
Intercut with.
Jodak kills Athanasios, is spotted by another slave, and is knocked out by the pommel of a Roman gladius.
What is the point in knowing the future if you are unable to shape it? If you are incapable of taking action?
Intercut with.
Before the funeral pyre for Prasutagus, as Boudica and Aronwin receive the tributes and offerings of the Iceni people, Jodak is dragged before Catus Decianus and thrown to the floor by Flacca and several slaves. Close up on Calamenes' bracelet.
We found this, sir.
Decianus can barely contain his rage.
I presented this to Calamenes. Crucify him.
The Iceni gathered nearby begin to riot as Calamenes is beat, and the legionaries take wood from Prasutagus' funeral pyre, preparing to crucify the Flamekeeper.
I swear to you, before Andraste herself, he is innocent.
That's quite an oath to make.
It is the truth.
If it was not Jodak, then who?
Producing the dagger that Aronwin used on Calamenes, Boudica holds it high for all to see.
I did.
Mother, no!
Anger flashes across Decianus' face. Intercut with.
Boudica's garments are cut and stripped from her body, leaving her naked in the fading light. Jodak's makeshift crucifix is hauled up and dropped into place. Jodak cries out in pain. Intercut with.
Branwen pleads with Decianus.
I wanted to believe you were a good man.
I wanted to believe I was a good man.
He turns away from Branwen and approaches Lucanus. He hands him the letter containing the list of Emperor Nero's orders.
See it done.
The first lash connects and Boudica grits her teeth, willing no sound to escape her lips. With the second lash, she must try not even harder not to cry out. Intercut with.
Branwen attacks Lucanus. He throws her down. Intercut with.
Branwen races towards the pair, trying to save her sister, but is smacked to the ground. Intercut with.
See that they are suitably humbled.
Branwen is hauled away by a legionary, followed by a Ronwin. Close up on a Ronwin.
Take your time with this one.
Intercut with.
Branwen is bloody and beaten, being forced to fight huge, Gaulish-looking legionary Oswaldus. Intercut with.
Branwen, terrified, sits on the knee of a particularly awful legionary, watching as his sister is forced to fight. Intercut with.
Branwen is pinned against a barrel and raped by Nixos. Intercut with.
Branwen is dragged away by Sophus and Velius. Intercut with.
When Velius is done with her, Sophus is going to take his turn. And when he is done, Oswaldus can.
No!
Intercut with.
Nixos presses Branwen's face into the barrel of wine for a time.
Me. Instead. Just me. Not her.
Intercut with.
The whole town is being ransacked by Roman soldiers and slaves alike. In the shadows besides the Great Hall, Merla crouches, hiding and listening, and unable to do a single thing to change any of it. Intercut with.
The Great Hall on fire. Merla enters the building, finding a Ronwin and Branwen. She carries Branwen to safety. Intercut with.
Begins to weep. Tears of relief and sorrow and humiliation flow freely from her. She turns to hide her head in Agro's chest. Then he tries to hold her in and comfort her. She fights him off. He tries to soothe her, but she is beyond all consolation.
Bronwyn, let me help you.
Torch and holds it up high. A Ronwin drives a gladius through Thacker's skull.
Get him down.
Angle on Jodak. Agro and Tyro begin to help him. Intercut with.
Ronwin stands with Merla. They look towards Boudica and the body of Prasutagus.
They've taken everything.
No. We are Iceni, sister.
Boudica brings the flaming torch to the pyre, the straw catching instantly.
And we will destroy them all.
Overhead, thunder rumbles and lightning splits the sky once more. Snap to black.
Exterior, Icenium from above, night. The sky is dark. The rain still falls, thick and fast and heavy, unyielding. Text, 4 weeks later. A young voice cries out. Dissolve to.
Interior, the royal house, continuous. Inside the somewhat charred royal residence, Branwen rolls around in a feverish agony on a bed that seems to swamp her tiny frame. Thusnelda presses a cold, damp cloth against her forehead, trying to soothe the young princess. Sitting, Boudica watches helplessly as her youngest daughter struggles against the fever coursing through her body and her mind. At the instruction of Jodak, Boudica leans forward, allowing a novice to gently remove her mantle, exposing the full extent of her newly scarred back. Although she's healing, the welts are still raised and red. Jodak's hands are bandaged and unusable. He instructs the novice who must work on his behalf. He gently traces the scars on his queen's back, but suddenly stops. Staring at his hands for a moment, he rubs the tips of his fingers against his stubbled face to check what he fears. He has lost all sensation in his fingers. Jarred back into the here and now, Jodak looks to the novice, who is holding a small clay bowl and waiting his next direction. He nods, indicating that they continue to administer a balm they have prepared. Jodak regards his hands once more, then notices Boudica watching him with both sadness and silent apology. He reassures her without words, and they both look back to Branwen, who curls fetal-like and clutches at her belly, whimpering in her feverish sleep. Cut 2.
Exterior, near the river, night. Branwen sits in the barren branches of the ancient yew tree. She is wrapped up, but the rain is relentless, soaking her clothes, skin, and hair. Her cuts and bruises have faded, though a small scar remains below her left eye, and while she may appear to be healing on the outside, she is far from being truly. She may be crying, but we cannot tell for the ever-beating rain. Resolve 2.
Titles: Boudica, Flame of the Iceni. Episode Choices Part 1. Snap Out. Fade In.
Exterior, the royal house, morning. Merla and several novices approach the royal house with medical supplies and fresh water and food. Sitting on a stool next to Branwen's bed, her hand cupping that of her sleeping daughter, Boudica looks up. Watching as Merla instructs the novices and places trays of food upon a long wooden table, Boudica seems to sigh. Thusnelda moves to the table, thanking the trio and bowing to Merla. Merla seems uncertain whether to stay or go. She clearly wants to ask after Branwen, but her newfound position is still so strange to her. She is trapped in between worlds. After a moment, she begins to put some food together on a tin plate. She pulls out a beaker of water and takes both plate and beaker over to Boudica, offering them to her. Still holding her daughter's hand, Boudica mutters something, which Merla does not catch.
You.
Forgive me, Your Grace,
I said, why not you?
Boudica turns her head back to Branwen. Her meaning is clear. For a moment, Merla remains still and silent. Rage, horror, anger, sorrow, and even a sense of understanding wage war inside her. She sets the plate and beaker upon the bed, stepping back immediately, distancing herself from the angry, broken mother before her.
There's food for you, if you want it. And water.
With a small bow, Merla turns and makes her way out of the royal house. Boudica watches her go, then nods to Thusnelda, who dismisses the novices. They make a deeper bow when Merla and exit. Boudica's eyes are still on Branwen as Thusnelda busies herself preparing a new paste from the fresh ingredients. She glances over to Branwen.
I remember the day I was born. It had rained all night. 7 nights, in fact. 7 solid nights of dreary days of rain.
Yes.
The king sent for me in the early hours because you had been whimpering in your sleep. He worried about you. Worried about her.
Always worried. Always worried.
He was always concerned.
Boudica looks to Thusnelda, who smiles at her. Sadly, Boudica returns the smile.
I remember having to send him out the night she was born.
I didn't know that.
Well, as you say, he was a worrier. And the last thing you needed was him getting all hysterical and under your feet. I was led in here and found you wriggling round like you were racing through the summer fields. I took one look at you, and I knew she wouldn't be long.
I couldn't keep still. I must have paced 1,200 steps through these rooms.
Oh, easily. But when she was ready, she came with such ease that you would have hardly known a royal princess had made her entrance into this world. We wrapped her up and tucked you both into that bed. She fed, and you both slept. I went outside to proclaim the good news and found that the rain had stopped. There was a rainbow overhead, bent towards the clearing on the hill, towards Andraste's altar. I thought to myself, this child has been blessed.
Thusnelda has finished mixing the paste and now adds water to it.
I said, Thusnelda, this child has purpose.
Surely every child has a purpose.
Indeed. Even a child born of infidelity.
Thusnelda looks towards the door that Merla left through. Then, bringing the concoction with her, she approaches the bed.
Even a child born of violence.
Boudica looks both aghast at the meaning behind Thusnelda's question and terrified of her own too young and tiny child.
Esnelda, please. She's too
She
young.
wriggles like her mother did.
Esnelda holds the cup containing the mixture out to Boudica. After only a moment, Boudica nods and, leaving her arm underneath Branwen, gently raises her daughter into a sitting position. Slowly and with some effort, she encourages Branwen to drink the potion. Not fully conscious, Branwen does so, reacting to the foul taste before falling back down into a fitful sleep once more.
When will we know if it has worked?
We must wait. We have little other choice now.
Cut 2.
Interior. Jodak's hut, mid-morning. Struggles to dress, his broken hands making everything so very laboured and difficult. A novice helps him patiently. Background. A young Iceni woman mends the fire in his hearth. When both have tended to their duties, Jodak nods his thanks, and they leave. Immediately, his mood changes. He is tired and hurt and resentful of the gods. With great effort, he uncorks an ale skin and does his best to drink from it. The task is not easy, as he cannot properly grip the skin and quickly becomes infuriated, almost to the point of tears. Possessed with a sudden overwhelming desire to physically take in his injuries, as through seeing them will help him to rationalize what is happening. Jodak tears at the bandages with his teeth, ripping them away from his mangled hands. Seeing his hands before him, hands that look so alien to him, and in which he cannot feel nothing but the spasms of pain irradiating from the jagged, central open wounds, Jodak breaks. He screams, he weeps, and swipes at the objects on the table, sending them clattering to the floor. He slumps to the ground, his back against the table leg, forcing the flames that dance almost mockingly in the hearth. He stares at them and bangs his head back against the leg of the table in frustration. Cut 2.
Exterior Icenium town centre, mid-morning. It is a surprisingly warm and pleasant day following the recent rains. Branwen walks, taking in the sights of her town, a place she has known her whole life, something that was solid and certain and tangible, now burned and broken and shattered. Despite the great devastation, however, the Iceni are doing all they can to rebuild their town. Here and there, men and women are salvaging beams and straw and what little goods the Romans did not take or destroy. They round up livestock and do their best to rebuild what they can, where they can. Everywhere Branwen walks, people stop for her and pay her obeisance. Some make signs of good health and good wishes upon her, but it seems to Branwen that as she passes by, they whisper about her. Close up, Branwen's ear. People talking. The sound is distorted and too loud. Branwen shakes it off. Over to her right, someone strikes a hammer off a nail, and Branwen physically recoils, distancing herself as the memories of Jodak being nailed to the crossbar assault her mind. Flashback. The nails piercing Jodak's hands. Branwen, her hands now covering her face, physically shakes her head, trying to shake free of the awful memory. She looks around her, and everywhere, those who had stopped to glance at her look away. She draws in a breath and continues to walk. Somewhere nearby, a child screams, and in her mind, Branwen hears Branwen screaming, calling for her. Branwen runs toward the sound, turning this way and that down several alleys, following the sound in her mind as much as those that are audible to all. Rounding a corner, Branwen finds 3 small children playing. They are chasing one another and splashing water at each other from a bucket. Their young mother sits on a fence watching them play. Seeing Branwen, they all stop and turn to look at her. Realizing her children are silent and unnerved, the mother looks over her shoulder. Surprised, she jumps down from the fence. She is only a little older than Branwen.
Queen Branwen, are you well? Get you some water, or?
Branwen shakes her head, recovering and trying to smile.
That's very kind of you, but not necessary. Thank you.
Backing away, Branwen tries to retrace her steps, only to find herself facing the burnt-out wreck that was the Great Hall. She struggles to breathe. She cannot tear her eyes from the wreckage. Her mind races, bombed with unwanted memories that she is in no way prepared to face at this moment. Physically recoiling, she begins to back away and steps, full bodily, into Aggro. He tries to apologise for bumping into her, but she does not appear to see or hear him. She lashes out at him and then recoils, even as he holds up his hands, crouching a little and trying to make himself appear smaller and less threatening. Flashback. Aronwin sees Osvaldus holding up his hands mockingly in a "come on then" gesture.
Aronwin.
Nothing. No response. She still does not see him.
Aronwin, it's me.
Aronwin is caught between the flashback and reality.
Valdus.
Aronwin.
Aronwin.
Relax.
Relax.
Angry and terrified, she takes a swipe at Aggro, but she is shaking so much and is so confused that she misses and he catches hold of her. He holds on to her, trying to soothe her. Several passers-by stop and watch.
Carry on. Stop staring. This is your queen. Stop.
Aggro?
Coming round as suddenly as she fell into a flashback, Aronwin realises it is Aggro holding her and momentarily relaxes. Almost instantly, she feels foolish and tries to stand, but she's shaking uncontrollably and must accept Aggro's help. Sweat beads her face as she looks to take in those who had stopped to look at her, but taking Aggro's advice, they have now moved on.
They think I am weak.
No. No, Aronwin. No one thinks that.
Of course they do. How can they not? And they are right.
No. You are strong.
I don't feel strong.
Aronwin pauses and looks towards the debris of the former Great Hall. It seems for a moment that she has forgotten Aggro is there entirely. Then,
I didn't thank you for saving me from the flames.
Aronwin, you don't need to.
I didn't thank you because I didn't want to be saved.
she does not look, but turns instead and walks away from him. He watches her go. He has no answers or comfort to offer her. Cut to.
Interior, the royal house, some time later. Aronwin hovers over by the door for several moments before Thusnelda notices her. Aronwin's eyes are locked on Branwen.
Aronwin. Aronwin, come in, child.
Aronwin seems only now to see Thusnelda. She looks over to her, but does not move.
How is she?
Thusnelda holds out her hand and gestures for her to come in. Aronwin does, reaching out and taking hold of the older woman's hand.
Time will tell. But she shares your fighting spirit.
This is enough to almost break Aronwin as she sits on the stool beside the bed. Thusnelda kisses Aronwin's hand, then heads out of the room, giving the sister some space and privacy. After another moment, Aronwin begins to speak quietly to Branwen.
People keep saying that. Telling me how strong I am. But I don't feel strong, Bran. I don't feel anything but empty. Sometimes I get this burst of rage. So hot I feel it might consume me. It might set me aflame from the inside out. I feel like I could take the life of every single person that is looking at me and whispering and staring, and I know that that's not right. Bran, I'm so fucking angry. And I'm angry most of all because I know that I don't really want to hurt any of those people. That they are good people. That it's not their fault. And that they're staring because they want to understand. For us. That they wish us well. That they pray to the goddess that she will rain destruction on the Roman scum. But I don't want their pity, Bran. or their well wishes, or their prayers. I just want you back.
She begins to stroke Branwen's hair. As Aronwen continues to speak, Boudica enters the room, but remains unseen, unnoticed, listening.
I know I've failed you. You always said that I was too rash, that I always attacked everything fist first, made everything a fight. And you were right. You're always right about everything. Only when it came down to it, it wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. I couldn't protect you. I couldn't help you. I could hear you, but I couldn't help you. I couldn't save you. Or me. I was helpless, Bran. And now, well, I just want you to be well. To tell me off and to lecture me again. I just want you to come back to us, Bran. I just want you back.
As Aronwen breaks, Boudica moves in and takes her daughter in her arms, holding her close to her chest, rocking her and kissing her head.
Oh, my darling girl.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, Aronwen. I am sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, do you hear me? Nothing. You did everything you could and more, everything. You cannot change what happened. None of us can. We do not have the power to change the past, but we can shape the future. The future of our people.
Aronwen is still too engulfed in sorrow to fully take in what Boudica is saying.
Ever since Caractacus was betrayed, there have been whispers of rebellion, pockets of resistance. And by now, the tales of the dishonours done to us by those Roman dogs will have reached the ears of every single rebel in the land. If we would make a move against Rome, we must strike now. Now, while the scars of the lash are still fresh on my back.
Boudica pauses, taking in Aronwen's expression. Aronwen looks horrified.
We must meet with the clan leaders, with the elders and the rebels. You must call them, my daughter. As Queen of the Iceni, you must call a council of war.
Aronwen stares into the face of her mother, a determined woman whose mind is set on revenge. Aronwen looks back to Branwen, and the sorrow, anger, and impotent rage wash over her once more. She turns back to Boudica and nods. Cut 2.
Exterior, Camelodunum, morning. Wide shot. The walled city of Camelodunum appears quiet and almost sleepy, absent the garrison forces that had previously occupied it. Text, Camelodunum. We move through several streets, passing bakers and taverns and street sellers plying their wares and their trade, but the city is a ghost town compared with what it was when we first visited. Cut 2.
Exterior, Catus Decianus' house, morning. All is quiet. A small bird lands on the steps that lead up to the front portio and happily nibbles at what it can find, undisturbed by anyone. Cut 2.
Interior, Catus Decianus' house. Decianus' study, continuous. The room has been meticulously packed away. Only a dark table and a single chair remain unpacked. Sabina sits at the table. Before her is a bowl containing some sort of soup. It looks completely unappetizing. Standing opposite Sabina is the small, slight slave who has taken charge in the absence of Calamenes. His name is Stepanides. Sabina takes up a spoon and, pushing out a breath, preparing herself, plunges the instrument into the questionable soup. She lifts the spoon, but does not bring the liquid to her lips. Instead, she regards it as she might a creature that is behaving in a manner that is completely unexpected and inappropriate.
Stepanides, remind me why we are living like paupers.
You told us not to replenish the cupboards, Domina.
Yes, but that was over 2 weeks ago, when I still believed that we might be leaving for Londinium in a matter of days.
Domina,
There's been no word from Catus. No word at all.
Stephanides shakes his head. She regards the soup once more.
What is this then? This concoction you expect me to stomach?
Fish. Fish head soup, Jobina.
Sabina replaces the spoon, doing her very best to remain calm and demure.
Fish head. I can't eat this. I'm sorry. I appreciate your efforts, but no. Where is Dicarius?
Training, Domina.
Of course he is. I'll dispose of this.
Sabina stands and makes her way through the large expanse of the house and out into the garden. Follow too.
Exterior. Peristyle garden of Decianus' house continuous. Following Sabina, we see Dicarius training in full armor. He sprints from one side of the garden to the other, then leaps and hauling himself up, stands for a moment on the balcony at one side of the peristyle before lowering himself back down and sprinting to repeat the task at the opposite end of the garden. Sabina watches him. When he next drops, she steps out into the garden proper. Dicarius sees her and pauses, catching his breath.
I remember watching Thrax perform such a show of calisthenics out here.
Sabina hands Dicarius a cloth as he removes his helmet. He takes it and wipes the sweat from his brow.
You could never reach, and you would get so annoyed with yourself.
Thrax was a big guy.
He was. You always aimed so high.
The pair exchange a smile as Dicarius tucks his helmet under his arm.
We have no food. At least, no edible food. And apparently no one thought to replenish the stores.
You told them...
I know what I said, but I didn't expect to still be here. I thought we'd be back in Gaul by now. What can be taking so long?
Still no word from Decianus?
Sabina shakes her head.
Dicarius, what if something's happened to him?
What do you mean?
Well, what if those Iceni, no offence, what if they have taken him prisoner? Or worse?
They wouldn't, Sabina, I promise you. They would violate their treaty with Rome. Such action would be considered an act of war. I promise you, your husband will be safe.
But look how they treated you.
That was different.
Was it? Is it? And you say Prasutagus named a Branwen queen.
And Branwen too.
How does that even work? How can that work, Dicarius?
Perhaps that is why he is delayed. Ironing out the details.
Perhaps.
A shadow of concern and doubt passes across Sabina's face. Dicarius reaches out to touch her arm.
He will be fine. Now, come on. We'll go get some supplies and hopefully avoid having to live on Odelia's fish head soup.
The mention of the soup snaps Sabina out of her thoughts and she laughs, hitting Dicarius playfully as they move off.
You knew about that.
Stephanides bought me a bowl this morning, and Adelia's been out twice to ask me what I thought. The smell alone was motivation enough to complete Thrax's challenge. Never underestimate the power and drive of avoidance.
Cut 2.
Exterior. The wide expanse of the Iceni lands. Afternoon. Warriors, farmers, families, and nobles flood towards Icenium and the wrong queens in their hundreds. Cut 2.
Exterior, Icenium, afternoon. Many of the arriving throng bring gifts of food and necessaries. They are greeted with open arms. Some are Iceni from local farmsteads and villages, but also present are Corsiani, Trinavante, and Catavallani nobles and entourage, farmers, warriors, and nomads. All have answered the thus far unspoken call to arms that has passed from one community to the next. All have come in response to the outrageous behavior of the Romans. All know that they must make a stand now or lose their identities and independence forever. Pull back to reveal someone watching the progress below. Cut 2.
Interior longhouse, continuous. From the upper level of a hastily converted storehouse, we see that it is a Branwen watching the arrival of the newcomers. She's wearing a gold torque around her throat and a simple diadem that denotes her as Queen of the Iceni people. She does not feel like the queen of her people. Stepping away from the window, she moves towards the wooden rail that runs around this upper level and looks down to the floor below. Boudica is receiving the leaders of the War Council, all of whom pay homage to her, bowing reverentially and offering condolences. Boudica glances up towards Aronwin and, with a minute gesture meant only for her daughter, indicates that she should come and join her. Aronwin draws in a slow breath, calming herself, and makes her way around to the steps that lead down to the ground floor. Follow too.
Interior, longhouse, ground floor, continuous. Aronwin descends the wooden steps, passing by the longhouse entrance on her way. Here, Jodak stands with 2 Iceni guards, greeting each of the tribal leaders before they are presented to Boudica. Going to stand next to her mother, the pair speak intermittently between receiving each new guest.
Why have you been hiding, child?
I've not been hiding.
No?
A man in his early 40s approaches the pair. He is Adminios, head of one of the leading noble families of the Catavilani. He takes Boudica's hand, bending to kiss it.
Boudica, I know our people have not always seen eye to eye, but I hope to prove to you that such days are behind us now.
Adminios, I thank you. I don't know that you will remember my daughter, Aronwin.
Adminios, seemingly delighted, opens his palms to take Aronwin's hands in his own.
Queen Branwen, if my eyes and ears do not deceive me, I grieve for all that you have suffered and lost. Know that the spears of the Catalovian are with you. We will avenge the dishonors visited upon you and your sister by the cowards of Rome.
Aronwin swallows, looking momentarily horrified at his knowledge of something so awfully and devastatingly personal to her. She recovers well.
I thank you, King Adminios.
Adminios smiles and moves to take his seat.
Adminios is no king, but he was impressed with you. Do not count on the spears of the Catavilani until we have spoken to all of their leaders, all of their kings.
Is what happened to Branwen and I a thing of common knowledge across the whole land?
Boudica turns to her daughter, taking in her voice and her expression.
Why do you think they have come?
Aronwin is distraught and humiliated, wishing she could be anywhere else but stood in the longhouse receiving guests who all believe that they have fled to her cause, who all believe that they know what she's been through and understand her suffering. She stands her ground, receiving the next tribal leader, surreptitiously wiping away a single tear in between greetings. At the door, Jodak watches her. Cut to.
Exterior, Camelodunum, town central, afternoon. Zacharias and Sabina walk through the quiet streets, a world away from the hustle and bustle that it was so recently. Several slaves follow behind the pair, carrying the supplies they have already purchased.
It's strange seeing it like this. A ghost town.
Zacharias nods.
Alliance's orders will see far more ghosts wandering the land.
What do you mean?
Zacharias shakes his head.
Never mind.
I hate it when you do that.
Who?
All of you.
All of me?
You know what I mean. Men. Catus does it all the time. It's so infuriating. I'm just expected to obey and walk away. Just stuff my ears and switch off my brain as if I didn't have one. As if I'm not capable of understanding anything at all.
Zacharias is momentarily dumbfounded.
We're sorry?
Sabina hits him playfully, then links her arm in his. They round the next corner and approach a bakery. The man currently replenishing the shelves outside the shop is a man they both clearly know, Rufus. In his early 60s, Rufus's appearance is about as far removed from a traditional baker as you could get, despite the flour covering his massive hands and apron, but this is because he is an ex-soldier who had settled in Camelodunum after serving his years in the Legion. More than a little rough around the edges, Well built and burly despite his age, Rufus has a broad grin that is honest and welcoming.
Sabina Looper, it is a delight to see you indeed. And who is... No, it can't be. Young Dicarius? Here, boy, let me look at you.
Delighted to see him, Rufus grasps Dicarius in a mighty bear hug, lifting him clear off the ground.
What are you doing here?
Well, I've been here 6 weeks or more. We were drafted up by Governor Paulinus. I'm surprised not to have seen you sooner.
My leg's been playing up again, so I haven't been as active in the shop. Her lad's been taking care of things.
How is Eppelena?
A woman calls from inside.
Fucking exhausted. Between taking care of him and running this place. God.
She moves off into another room, muttering and grumbling. Dicarius laughs. Rufus grins. Sabina chuckles, though she knows she shouldn't.
Delightful as ever. Now, what can I get for you?
Dicarius indicates to Sabina, who steps forward. Squeezing one of the loaves, she inhales it and gives a satisfied bob of her head.
I'll take two like this. And, oh, do you have some of those sweet honey cakes with the dates in? You won't have tried them, Dicarius. They are simply sublime.
Dicarius grins to see Sabina so animated. Rufus laughs.
Inside. Eppelena will sort you out. Customers.
Sabina taps him on the arm, shushing him, then enters the bakery. As Dicarius moves to follow, Rufus stops him.
So, Paulinus.
His mood changing at the mention of the governor, Dicarius gives a slow, firm nod.
Man's on a mission for sure. A dangerous path. Messing with the druids. Even a brain-battered foot soldier like me knows that.
Dicarius smiles.
So, how come you're not headed to Diva?
Decianus ordered me back here and told me to watch over Sabina, to protect her until...
You realise that'll never hold up if anyone asks you, don't you?
Well, it's the truth.
Aye, it might well be. But to a legate or a tribune, even a damn centurion with a fucking bug up his arse, this looks like desertion.
It's not.
I know that. I know you.
You haven't seen me in years.
So what are you saying? I don't fucking know you.
The pair scuffle playfully for a moment until Eppelena calls from inside as she bags up the purchases for Sabina.
Rufus, Caelius, Calpurnius, I swear by all the gods, if you aggravate that fucking leg again, I'm going to aggravate your face with this fish slice.
The two men pause, locked in a grapple.
I think she means it.
Oh, she definitely means it.
They release their grip and the two slaves pass them, entering the shop to fetch and carry the goods.
That's how I know she cares.
Dicarius laughs again. Then, without warning...
You know, I joined the legions because of you and all your tales.
No, you joined the legions because Decianus made you.
Well, that too. But you inspired me.
Rufus scruffs Dicarius' hair. He lets him.
Go on. And now you're back here with Sabina. No Decianus.
Dicarius frowns.
Well, don't say it like that.
Like what?
Well, you know.
Sabina emerges from the shop with the two slaves in tow.
Thank you, Rufus. A pleasure as always. My thanks, Eppelena.
Eppelena mutters something from inside as Sabina moves off slowly, passing a cloth merchant stall less than 20 paces away. Dicarius lowers his voice.
She's like a sister to me.
Yeah, like. But she's not though, is she?
Well, she might soon be a stepmother.
Even as he says it, the odd reality of that statement seems to hit Dicarius for the first time. Seeing this, Rufus laughs out loud, slapping him on the back.
Well, good luck with that.
Rufus, I'm serious.
So am I.
Eventually, Rufus stops laughing.
So, Decianus would adopt you.
He said so.
Can you imagine it? The child who became a hostage, the hostage who became a soldier, the soldier who became a citizen of Rome, and a prominent and wealthy citizen of Rome at that. You've done well, kid.
You're a fucker, Rufus.
No. No, I am an inspiration.
Rufus winks at him again.
Now fuck off. You're not quite sister, not quite stepmother is growing impatient.
Flicking Rufus the middle finger, Dicarius moves down the street to catch up with Sabina. Rufus chuckles to himself, even as Epolina calls to him from inside the shop, speaking without waiting for him to answer.
What woman? Fucking what?
He steps inside the shop. Cut to.
Exterior, further along the street, continuous. As Dicarius catches up with Sabina, a young boy reaches the pair. He's carrying letters.
Excuse me, Domina, but is your name Sabina Lupa?
It is.
Sabina glares at Dicarius. Surely this boy isn't dangerous.
Then you're Dicarius.
Now Dicarius is even more guarded.
I have letters, one for each of you. I only actually had one. That was for you, sir. But when I got to the house and asked where you was, they said I might as well bring the letter that had arrived for her too.
Let me see.
The boy steps back, putting letters behind his back.
I've run a long way with them.
Sabina nods and indicates to one of the slaves, who steps forward and hands the boy several coins.
4 denarii. Make it 6, go on.
You're lucky to get 4.
Okay, 5. Please.
Sabina nods and the slave hands over another coin.
Oh, and a cake.
Don't push your luck, kid.
But Sabina is smiling and already handing a cake over in exchange for the letters. As soon as the exchange has taken place, the boy takes off, running down the street.
Thanks, Domina.
Sabina passes Dicarius his letter and is already opening hers as he regards his. It is small and written in rough hand, nothing like the elegant-looking correspondence Sabina has received. He is about to open it when Sabina exclaims,
It's from Catus. He's already in Gaul.
Dicarius pockets the letter addressed to him. He looks to Sabina and finds both confusion and anger plastered clearly across her face. Cut to.
Exterior Icenium, the fighting circles, afternoon. A Ronwin paces the perimeter of the central fighting circle, a spear in her hand, the point of it carving a line in the ground as she walks. This is where her father's body was burned. Although his ashes and the remains of the pyre have been cleared away, the ground is still scorched. Not too far away is the spot where her mother was scourged, and Jodak was nailed to a cross. She continues to walk the perimeter, her mouth moving as though she is talking to someone. She suddenly slams up against the form of Calamenes. Pulling a dagger from a thigh brace, she plants it in his abdomen without thinking. Horror and apology show on her face immediately. She tries to draw the dagger out, but Calamenes takes hold of her wrist, forcing her to keep the dagger in place. Blood seeps from the wound and over her hand. His voice is calm, despite the dagger protruding from him.
Now, that's how this whole mess began, isn't it, Princess?
You're dead.
You should know. You killed me.
I didn't mean to.
I appreciate that. Not that it matters. The result is still the same.
I'm sorry.
You'll excuse me if I tell you all is...
Calamenes releases Ronwin's wrist, and she steps back, looking at the blood on her hands. After a moment, Calamenes pulls the dagger free and throws it to the ground, his wound gushing uncontrollably.
No! Don't!
Ronwin rushes to his side, catching his body as he falls, bleeding all over her once more.
As you so kindly pointed out, I'm already dead, rotting in a bog out near the river. None of this matters.
It does. It does matter. It does.
Seemingly out of nowhere, Merla appears.
Ronwin.
Ronwin is no longer covered in blood, and instead of Calamenes' body, she's cradling the spear. There is no dagger.
It does matter.
Merla nods, crouching down and moving in slowly towards Ronwin.
Yes. It matters. Of course it matters.
Merla manages to sit next to Ronwin. He lays the spear across both their laps. She continues to speak to the spear as though it was Calamenes.
I did it. everything. And nothing. And you...
You're not the only one.
Cautiously, Lola takes Ronwin's hand.
I did not help you. I knew something would... I saw something in the flames.
I went to the river to the yew tree, and I felt guilty. I felt confused and afraid. Afraid of aggro. Silly is that?
Ronwin falls silent as if hearing Merla for the first time.
Wait. You were there?
Everything and nothing. We are all responsible. All of us guilty of some action. Or inaction.
No. Not all of us.
Cut to.
Interior, the royal house at that moment. In the bed, Branwen twists and turns and cries out, but is unable to wake from her pain or her nightmares. Cut to.
Exterior, peristyle garden of Decianus' house, afternoon. Sabina paces back and forth before Dicarius, holding out the open letter. Dicarius sits on a low stool bench, listening patiently. It is clear that he has been there for some time. Slaves make themselves scarce.
Gaul!
Thrusting the letter at Dicarius, she throws her hands up in the air.
In Gaul? What does that mean? How is he there, and why? Why did he sail without me? And why has it taken my noble husband this long to inform me of the fact?
Dicarius is lost for words. What can he say? He shrugs apologetically, but Sabina simply huffs and storms past a pair of linen slaves, causing them to drop their wares all over the floor before their furious domina. The pair fall to their knees, apologizing and trying to save the fresh linen. She continues to storm past them, heading back into the house, shouting as she goes. Dicarius rubs his eyes.
Odelia, bring me something savoury to eat, something edible this time, and bring me one of those honey cakes. No, bring 2.
When she has gone, he takes the letter addressed to him from his tunic and regards it, thumbing the corner and the rough seal. He does not break it. Stepanides passes by underneath the peristyle, trying to avoid eye contact and make himself invisible. Dicarius sees him.
Stepanides.
Yes, Dominus.
Where... Wait. Don't do that. I am not...
Knowing that he has wasted his time, and the slave is all but programmed to respond in this manner, Dicarius gives up.
Never mind. Look, the boy who brought us the letters, where did he come from?
I couldn't say, sir. But he seemed to have had quite a journey.
What do you mean?
Something about peoples on the move? More than he expected. He said that if he hadn't have had to keep hiding, he would have made better time. But it was probably all bluster, sir.
Peoples, not people.
Stepanides nods.
I didn't think anything of it. The boy had a strange local way of speaking.
Dicarius nods, moving off distracted.
I need to speak with that boy.
Stepanides is left looking bewildered. Cut to.
Exterior, Camelodunum town, several minutes later. Dicarius makes his way through the street, keeping his eyes peeled for the boy as he makes his way back towards the centre of the town. He soon finds himself back outside Rufus's bakery. The ex-legionary is leaning against the door jamb as he spies him before he realises where he is.
Miss me already?
Dicarius is distracted but friendly.
Always. Rufus, have you seen a boy at all? Scrawny-looking, small, auburn hair?
Well, aside from the fact that you've just described half the population as small boys, I think by some small miracle I might actually know the one you mean. He stopped you earlier by the Scythian stall.
Yes, he had letters for us.
Yeah, that's him. He's a quick one. Tends to make his way carrying news and letters, parcels and the like.
Do you know where I can find him?
Why? What's he done?
Oh, nothing. He had this.
Dicarius takes out the unopened letter and shows it to Rufus. Rufus takes hold of it, looking it over.
I want to know who gave it to him and where he was when they did.
Am I stating the bloody obvious in suggesting that you're more likely to find the answers inside the letter than wasting your time chasing after some urchin? You can read, right?
Of course I can fucking read.
Rufus laughs for a moment, but stopped suddenly as he started.
So why don't you open it?
I'm afraid of what it will say.
Rufus nods solemnly, understanding. Dicarius replaces the letter and turns away from Rufus, looking down the street. He turns back, his voice lowered.
Decianus has returned to Gaul.
Rufus looks quizzical, but remains silent.
He sent a letter to Sabina apologising for the change in plan and saying that he deemed the haste of his departure to be crucial to upholding the empire. He's left instruction that she follow on immediately.
Crucial to upholding his own life, more like. Fucking coward.
This change in his friend catches Dicarius completely off guard.
Rufus?
I've heard rumours. I didn't want to say anything earlier because that's all I thought they were. Rumours.
Rumours?
Regarding Decianus's recent conduct with the Iceni. Come in and sit down. You're not going to like what I've got there.
Rufus sidesteps and, looking up at the man who inspired him to be a soldier, Dicarius nods and enters the building. Cut to
Interior the Longhouse, Icenium, afternoon. There is much noise and heated debate from all the noble families, kings and queens representing the various tribes that they have come to form a council of war. Boudica sits in the charred remains of her throne, rescued from the Great Hall. Jodak raises his hands for quiet. He's taken off the bandages, exposing the wounds and the memory of the recent violence against the Iceni for all to see. It has the desired effect, and all go quiet. Taking their seats on the long wooden benches, they all give their full attention to Jodak.
Noble friends, gracious majesties, warriors of all clans, you have answered the call of the Iceni people because you are men and women of honor. You have come because you have heard tell of the outrageous behavior of the Rome towards our people. We, who allied to Rome, who pledged ourselves to obey their laws, made tribute to the strange deities as well as our own great gods. We, who struggled to pay the taxes they levied upon us year after year, but pay we did. We, who traded in coins stamped with the face of their audacious little emperor, placating their belief that he is himself divine, as if that child could ever rival the gods of our people. And we did all of this, allied ourselves with Rome, as many of you have done, on the conditions of peace and friendship. Does this peace?
There is a small rumbling in response.
Does this look like friendship?
The noise swells to a great roar of no. Boudica takes in the sight, drawing in a breath, allowing Jodak to work the crowd, who grow louder in their opinions of Rome and more open in their declarations to join the Iceni. He begins to swell with pride and the desire for revenge. Cut to
Exterior, Decianus' house, afternoon. Dicarius races up the steps of the portico. Cut to
Interior Decianus' house continuous. Dicarius moves through the house, looking for Sabina in various rooms, calling out to her as he goes. A number of household slaves regard him as one might a man making too much noise in a library, but say nothing. Eventually he finds her in one of the cubiculums that she is currently using to store pieces of furniture, boxes, and knickknacks ahead of the move. She is looking through a box that contains frescoes and pressed flowers, dried fruit, and items that have been kept for memory's sake.
I hate this island.
She replaces the items and closes the lid on the box.
Where did you get to? Dicarius, is everything all right? You don't look at all well.
Dicarius takes Sabina's hands and stands her up.
Sabina, we need to get out of here.
What are you talking about? You're not making sense.
I know the reason Decianus left, and why he was in such a hurry.
Sabina looks at him questioningly. Cut to.
Exterior, near the river, late afternoon. Amongst the reeds and tall grass, a Ronwin, up to her arms in the mud, struggles to drag the body of Calimenes out of the boggy marsh. Clambering up onto the solid bank, she pulls him along with her, rolling him onto his side as she falls flat onto her back, exhausted. Intercut with.
Flashbacks of being in the Great Hall, being pinned to the roundhouse floor by Junius and Osvaldus, assault her mind once more. She turns forward looking for Branwen. Intercut with.
Instead, she sees Calimenes staring back at her. When he speaks, it is with the voice of Catus Decianus.
Was it worth it? You're...
Shut up!
Calimenes' voice is now once more his own.
Was it worth my life?
Shut up!
What if she dies too? Branwen.
Shut up!
Aronwin turns to strike out at Calimenes, but she's confronted by a very different version to the one who spoke previously. He is now a rotting, bloated corpse that barely resembles his old self. Aronwin recoils. She sees his bracelet, the one that Decianus had spoken about. She wipes the mud and sludge from it. Angrily, she tears the bracelet from his wrist, and standing, she turns and throws the bracelet into the river. She drags a large piece of cloth towards the bog and hauls Calimenes' body onto it. Intercut with.
Aronwin wraps and binds Calimenes' body, placing springs and herbs in between the layers and incanting as she goes. Intercut with.
Aronwin builds a small funeral pyre near the river using the boughs from the yew tree. Intercut with.
With some difficulty, she raises Calimenes' body onto the pyre. She takes out the dagger that slew him. She regards it with tears in her eyes and lays it on his chest, tucking it into the wrapping.
It's all I have. I'm sorry.
Aronwin takes a burning torch and uses it to set the pyre alight. She watches as he burns. Intercut with.
Aronwin turns and walks away from the pyre. Cut to.
Interior the longhouse, Icenium as before. Boudica, still seated in her throne, listens as yet another noble raises their voice. There are around 40 people gathered in the room, and this time it is Havda, leader of the Belgi, telling the story of their plight against the Romans.
Burning our crops and commandeering the use of all our workshops and forges.
Terida, a noble Trinovanti woman, stands to address Havda.
So, you could not forge chains to bind the slaves you would steal that season? A great shame indeed, Havda.
We suffered great losses to life.
Have you ever ridden into battle?
How dare you question?
Have you?
Everyone knows the Belgi trade slaves with Rome.
Why should any of us trust you?
A great commotion breaks out, and Boudica rubs at her brow. Glancing up, her eyes catch a movement near the door, sunlight reflecting on gold. She looks over to find Aronwin near the door. Boudica stands, and with a silent look, calls her daughter over. Aronwin obeys, moving swiftly and largely unnoticed to join her mother.
Your war council.
Squabbling like children for scraps at a table.
They bring with them a force nearing 200,000 warriors.
But how can they be commanded if their leaders cannot even sit in a room and speak civilly to one another?
How indeed?
Aronwin shakes her head, but the crowd are growing quieter now, some seeing her for the first time. Slowly, they all take their seats. A prince of the northeastern Parisi tribe, Tecubnus, stands. He is a little older than Aronwin, but not much.
Queen Aronwin, you grace us with your presence, and not before time.
On the benches that run around the side of the longhouse, Agro and Tyro glower at the young prince. There is a lengthy silence, and Tecubnus snorts derisively as he moves to sit once more.
You have somewhere more pressing to be, Prince Tecubnus. Frolicking on a hillock amongst the winter yews, perhaps?
You imply that I am a farmer or a shepherd rather than a warrior.
She says you spend your days shagging sheep, you half-brained patsy.
She's not far wrong.
Another rally of vocal chaos ensues. Prince Ticubnus looks furious and ready to kill someone. Aronwin turns to Boudica.
Mother, remove your cloak.
Aronwin?
They need to see.
With a resolute nod, Boudica draws in a breath and turns her back to the crowd. She undoes the clasp that holds her lightweight cloak about her shoulders. Aronwin takes the cloak from her mother, passing it to Jodak. Boudica's dress has been altered to include a large V cutaway section, as her back is still too tender to bear any kind of heavy or rough cloth against it. The crowd falls silent with only the odd stifled inhalation here and there. Aronwin waits another moment or two.
You have seen the hands of our flamekeeper mangled by the iron of a Roman nail as they pinned him to the wood meant for my father's pyre. And now you see the scars on my mother's back, wrought by the hand of a Roman whip until her flesh was tatters and her blood pooled at her feet. Do you need to see how my poor sister writhes in the bed of her deceased father in the agony of fever before you are to understand? And if you could, would you dare to look inside my mind and see the nightmares that cut me up every time I close my eyes? Could you stand to peer inside my heart and see the hatred and despair that have been carved there forever into that fragile organ by an unseen Roman blade? You scorn me for my timekeeping, Prince Ticubnus, and I scorn you for your lack of patience. Meanwhile, Rome scorns all of us. And every day, all of our people suffer. All of us are ground down, hammered upon, scourged, defiled. Where does it stop? If you are not here to raise your voices as one and stand together as one people, then I am sorry, but you have had a wasted journey. If you came only to stare at a queen broken by Rome, then you may as well leave right now.
Aronwin takes in the crowd. All eyes are on her. She has them. She turns Boudica to face the War Council once more, taking hold of her mother's hand.
The soldiers of Rome believe they have destroyed us, with such humiliations and degradations as they have used on other peoples. They believe they have subdued us utterly, that they have disgraced us. But Rome has disgraced itself.
Gesturing for Jodak to come closer, Aronwin takes a careful hold of his hand, so that he, Boudica, and Aronwin are all joined. Slowly, as she continues to speak, the War Council members around the room stand and join hands.
And together, we can show them just how powerful we can be. And just how fucking wrong they were.
The room erupts in a united war cry against Rome. Aronwin looks to Boudica, who nods her approval. Cut 2.
Exterior, the gates of Camalodunum, early evening. On his horse, Dicarius rides out of the town. The gates are closed and locked behind him. Cut 2.
Exterior, open road, early evening. Dicarius travels along the road, still not certain that he has made the correct decision, but knowing that he cannot turn back. He cannot help but think over his last conversation with Sabina earlier that day. Fade 2.
Interior Decianus' house, to Blinum, earlier. Sabina is sat on the couch, looking both annoyed, anxious, and concerned.
No. No, you can't have. I don't believe it.
I don't know what to believe anymore. The only thing we know for certain is that Decianus has fled to Gaul.
He hasn't fled.
Are you sure? Because conveniently forgetting to rendezvous with your wife after effectively declaring open war on the Iceni looks a lot like fleeing to me.
He said in his letter that he had gone ahead to...
In a letter that took more than 4 weeks to arrive.
There could have been delays.
Oh, come on, Sabina.
There could have been delays.
He didn't want anyone to know where he was. Because he needed time to escape.
Escape? Escape what?
The army that is massing on our doorstep. who are going to want retribution for the dishonours inflicted upon their queen.
Massing army. Wait. You're serious about this, aren't you?
Dicarius nods.
I need to know what's going on.
You're not going back there.
I think I have to, Sabina.
To do what? What can you do?
Dicarius is already racing around, getting a water skin and checking that it's fresh. He pulls a packet from his tunic and holds it up for Sabina to see.
First things first, I have booked you passage on a ship sailing for Gaul. It leaves tomorrow noon. Rufus will take you.
But what about the house, the goods, the inventory? Catus will be displeased.
I think Decianus should be grateful to find his wife alive in one piece and safely return to him.
Dicarius, please. You're scaring me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please don't worry about any of these things. God's willing, I will send them on to you in several weeks, once this is all blown over.
What are you going to do?
Whatever I can.
And if you run into a detachment from the 2nd or the 9th, or any legion for that matter, you'd be crucified for desertion. You don't exactly look Roman after all.
Don't worry. I have a plan.
Dicarius takes out the letter he received from the boy earlier that day. It is still unopened and bears a military seal. Sabina nods slowly, sadly.
So, it's goodbye again.
A little awkwardly, Dicarius hugs Sabina, wrapping her up in his arms. She holds on to him still.
Dicarius, do you truly think Catus could have done such a thing?
Dicarius plants a kiss on top of her head, holds her in at a distance so that he can look into her eyes and be certain.
Be on that ship. Promise me.
Sabina nods, and Dicarius releases her. Fade 2.
Exterior, open road as before. The light is fading, but Dicarius knows there is still enough time to reach Icenium before nightfall. He is so focused that he doesn't notice several riders gaining on him until they overtake him and surround him. The group of 5 are a scouting group from the 3rd cohort of Legion 9 in Hispania. Their cohort will be several days behind. In charge, Jacamus calls out to Dicarius.
Oh! Wait up there, brother. What's the hurry?
Dicarius stops, but remains on his horse, saluting the centurion.
Forgive me, sir. I lost all sense of time and space.
Name and file, soldier.
Legionary Dicarius, sir. Auxiliary cavalry attached to the 20th, under the command of Decurion Arvo, sir.
Jacamus nods.
And where are you headed, soldier?
I have a letter to deliver, sir.
Show me.
Dicarius complies, handing the letter over.
That's a tribune's seal.
Dicarius nods.
Where did you say you were heading?
Forgive me, sir, but I didn't.
No, you didn't.
Heavy silence.
So where are you heading?
The other soldiers close in around Dicarius, one of them taking hold of his horse's reins.
I cannot say, sir.
You cannot say?
No, sir. It's classified, sir.
Jacamus weighs up Dicarius in his words, the intensity of the silence pressing down upon him even as Jacamus's gaze cuts through him. Eventually, he returns the letter.
Fair enough. You tell me you're on a classified mission, fine, and you have a document bearing a tribune seal, so I'm willing to believe you.
Jacamus nods to the other soldiers who dismount. The one holding Dicarius's horse jumps down, but continues to hold on to the reins.
But these lands aren't safe for a man on his own right now, especially not one of us. Night's almost here. You're welcome to join us this evening.
That's kind of you, sir. Thank you. But I really think I should keep...
No one will thank you if your message isn't delivered because you end up getting killed. Make camp with us. I insist.
Dicarius forces a weak smile and dismounts. Jacamus smiles warmly and follows suit. He is a father to his men and is fiercely protective, but warm and loyal. In so many ways, he reminds Dicarius of Arvo. Dicarius swallows as Jacamus claps him on the back.
That's better. We'll get a fire going, share some wine. When was the last time you ate, eh?
Dacarius nods once more as they walk. Jacquemus pauses, his arm still around Dacarius. He speaks so low, Dacarius has to lean in to hear him.
But if you're lying to me...
The threat is clear. Somehow, Dacarius does not flinch or back away, but remains neutral. Just. Cut to.
Exterior, Icenium, night. Shots of the town as it was. It is empty. Intercut with.
We move through the streets that once bustled with life. Streets which even earlier that day saw children playing, with trade beginning to blossom once more, people pulling their lives back together. Now it is desolate. Intercut with.
Exterior the road, night. At a distance from above. Through the darkness that blankets the land, we can make out the long meandering road only by the mass of flaming orange that crawls, ant-like, along it, consuming the path ahead, engulfing it in flame. It moves from left to right across the screen. Intercut with.
On the ground, still at a distance, we see that the mass of moving flame is in fact a vast body of people marching, though not in any real formation, towards us. Intercut with.
Closer now. We watch a section passing by at ground level from left to right. It seems to have no beginning and no end. Legs and booted feet, the flanks of horses and cartwheels, adults, children and babes on hips. Intercut with.
The people, a mixture of the clans that had gathered in Icenium. They carry the flaming torches and weapons, bags, satchels, slumped over shoulders, a caravan train transporting weaponry, food stores, goods, and the elderly and infirm follows behind the main body. The main body that is currently a mass of 100,000 people. Intercut with.
Close up on one of the caravans. Intercut with.
Inside the caravan. In a makeshift bed, Branwen lies still as the motions of the cart sway her. She is pale, deathly pale. Frisnelda sits with her, tending her as best she can, wiping the sweat from her brow. Merla crushes roots and berries in a bowl, preparing a medicine for her half-sister. Intercut with.
On the ground once more, at a distance. The vast body of people marching towards us begin to come a little into focus. Though we can only see some of those in the front few rows, we understand that these are 100,000 people moving as one, moving with purpose against a common enemy. Intercut with.
Before the marching body of flame and rage, we surge forward, the heat of the torches curving our view to see a Ronwen at the head of the army, leading her people in a column of flame that will leave only ashes behind. Boudica walks beside her on her right, and Jodak on her left. In the front rank we see Agro, Tyro, Calticus, Terida, Tecubnus, Adminius, and many other faces. Beyond them there are the faces of 100,000 others, united in their anger and their outrage, united in their hatred of Rome. Intercut with.
We are driven forward to take in the determined expression on a Ronwen's face. Surging closer once more, we focus on the blue of a Ronwen's eyes and the reflected flame that flickers there, echoing the flame that burns inside her, her heat, her drive, and her desire for revenge. Snap to black. The end.
Well done, everybody. Thank you for that. Very well done. Apologies for the little technical glitches that have happened this evening, and apologies for the car alarm that just went off at the end. That was just, so nicely timed. It could take just 5 more minutes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been incredible journey so far. I actually feel like we've come on this massive journey. I kind of feel like reading that bit out, like we were kind of walking along with all those guys. So thank you to everybody who's been listening in, and thank you to all of you guys for reading. Thank you so much. It's just incredible. Yay. Is there anything you'd like to add, Alice?
Don't put pressure on me like this.
I'm sorry. No, it's just incredible. I honestly do feel like really overwhelmed by everything that that we've pulled together over these couple of weeks. Thank you so much. I can't say it enough, so I'll just keep saying it apparently. But yeah, join us again next week if you can, and yeah, we'll see you then. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.
If we can.
Maybe.
There we go. Oh.